Every workplace wants to increase productivity and help their employees get more work done. That just makes sense. There is one problem though. Many people's view of productivity still comes from the Industrial Revolution 150 years ago, where work was much more simple and predictable. This leads to some fundamental misconceptions about work, like, if you work more hours, you get more work done. Like adding more people to a project means you can finish that project sooner, or that productivity is more or less constant and can be reliably predicted and scheduled. All of these turn out to be wrong in modern workplaces. And I would go so far as to say that these beliefs are not only wrong, they're actively harmful. So in this video, I want to present my suggestion for 5 new rules of productivity for workplaces today and some specific tips for how your workplace can apply them. Rule number 1, productivity varies wildly from day to day, and this is perfectly normal. 100 years ago, production and output could be planned in advance, barring accidents or equipment failure. Basically, you knew that if your factory operated for a certain number of hours tomorrow, you would produce a certain number of widgets. In a modern workplace, you can't possibly know in advance what your productivity will be tomorrow. Tomorrow could be the day where one of your employees reaches a brilliant insight that saves the team weeks of work, and the whole team works energetically and productively for 8 hours. But tomorrow could also be the day where half the team just spends 8 hours staring dejectedly into their monitor, or someone introduces a mistake that will take days to find and fix. This variation is frustrating, but it's perfectly normal. It also means that you should never judge your employees' productivity by their output on any given one day, but rather by their average productivity over many days. I saw this myself when I was writing my first book. Some days I would sit myself down to write in front of my laptop and I just couldn't string 2 words together. And some mornings I would just bang out most of a chapter in a few hours. Writing is a creative process. I can do it when I'm in the mood, but trying to write when I'm not is just a waste of time. And on the days where I couldn't write, I just go do something else, probably wakeboarding if I know myself well enough. The result was that I wrote the whole book in just a couple of months. It turned out to be a really good book, and I just loved the whole writing process. So here are 3 things your workplace can do about this rule. First, don't make plans based on only a team's maximum productivity days. Not every day will be like that. Base your plans on a team's average productivity. Also, don't beat employees up on their low productivity days. It's normal, it's part of the flow, and I think these days have value too. I like to think that on these days, my subconscious mind is working on some really complicated problem for which the solution will suddenly appear in my mind after I've had some time to work on it subconsciously. And third, if people do have a day where they get very little done, why not let them go home early and relax or get some private chores done? The second new rule of productivity is very important. It's that working more hours means getting less done. Whenever we want to increase productivity, it's incredibly tempting to make employees work overtime to get more done. Never do it. Instead, commit this graph to memory. The point of the graph is simple. Permanent overwork lowers output, and people get less work done in 60 hours a week than they do when they work 40 hours a week. Here's a real-life example from Arlie Hochschild's excellent book, The Time Bind. ESI, a computer company in Portland, Oregon, was facing tough times, and here's what happened according to one of their executives. When demand for a product is down, normally a company fires some people and makes the rest work twice as hard. Instead, we went down to a 32-hour-a-week schedule for everyone during the downtime. We took everybody's hours and salary down, executives too. But then he discovered 2 huge surprises. First, productivity did not decline. I swear to God, we get as much out of them at 32 hours as we did at 40. So it's not a bad business decision. But second, when economic conditions improved, we offered them 100% time again. No one wanted to go back. Never in our wildest dreams would our managers have designed a 4-day week, but it's endured at the insistence of our employees. This may be counterintuitive, but it's important to understand. In a modern workplace, there is no simple linear relationship between hours worked and output. And permanent overwork means lower output. And by the way, studies also show that it makes employees stressed and sick. And here are 3 things you can do about this. First, never ever make employees work permanent overtime. In fact, some studies indicate that knowledge workers are the most productive when they work 35 hours a week, not 40, and certainly not 60 or 80. Second, give employees flexibility to plan their working hours in the way that works best for them, instead of making everybody work from 9 to 5 or 9 to 9 or whatever. And third, why not think about introducing a 30-hour work week? It has worked in many, many companies. We heard about ESI, but it's also worked for companies like Toyota Center Gothenburg in Sweden. We're going to link to an excellent video about that. Rule number 3, when you work harder, you get less work done. A lot of people mistakenly think that employees get more work done if they work harder. Some managers talk about creating a sense of urgency or a burning platform so that employees feel pressure to work harder, to put in more of an effort. Some managers think that an increase in effort means an increase in productivity. But in modern workplaces, that just does not work, because you can't force creativity, you can't force effective teamwork, good writing, clear thinking, or fast learning. In fact, more pressure tends to create the opposite effect and make employees achieve less work. So here are 3 things you can do about this rule. First, take the pressure off yourself and your teams. Even if somebody makes a mistake or misses a deadline, the world is probably not going to end. Less pressure means higher productivity. Second thing to try, schedule a workload equivalent to only 80% of the team's work week. Now trust me, they won't be wasting the remaining 20% of their week, but they will be more relaxed and they will be more productive. And third, shift work around so that employees spend most of their time doing tasks they enjoy. And remember, a task that this person hates to do might be a task that this person over here loves to do. So if you can move the task over there, you'll have 2 employees who are both happier and more productive and under less pressure. Rule number 4, downtime is essential. Now, in an industrial age factory, any time away from the production line was unproductive, and therefore all downtime was bad. That just does not work anymore. Countless studies show that people need downtime, they need breaks, they need vacations in order to be productive. Here are 3 things you can do about this rule. First, show employees that it's always okay to take a break. Do not beat them up for relaxing. Everybody does it once in a while. It doesn't make them a lazy bastard or a bad person. Second, make sure that employees actually take their days off and take their vacation time, because in many countries, employees don't. They're entitled to a certain amount of vacation time and they actually don't use it for whatever reason, cultural reasons, or because they're afraid to lose their job. So make sure they actually use their vacation time. And third, stop the always on culture. This culture where managers can send emails in the evenings and on weekends and expect employees to respond right away. Stop it. It just does not work. Here's a great example. Back when Joe Biden was still vice president for Obama, he sent a memo to his staff with a fantastic message. I would like to take a moment and make something clear to everyone. I do not want any of you to sacrifice important family obligations for work. This is very important to me. If I find out that you are working with me while missing important family responsibilities, it will disappoint me greatly. Thank you for all your hard work, Joe Biden. What a great example. And the fifth and final new rule of productivity for modern workplaces is that happiness is the ultimate productivity booster. The single most efficient way to increase the productivity of your employees is to help them be happy at work. No system, no tools, no process, no technique in the world can beat the productivity boost a person gets from just really, really loving their job. Now, I'm not criticizing all of the traditional productivity techniques out there. Some of them are fine. It's just that when you apply them to a person who is unhappy at work, you're trying to fix something at a surface level when the real problem is much, much deeper and much more serious. My favorite book on this topic is The Progress Principle by Teresa Amabile, where she talks about the relationship between happiness and productivity. People are more creative and productive when they feel happy, are intrinsically motivated by the work itself, and have positive perceptions of their colleagues and the organization. In those positive states, people are more committed to the work and more collegial toward those around them. Inner work life, we saw, can fluctuate from one day to the next, sometimes wildly, and performance along with it. So the conclusion is clear. Happy employees are productive, miserable employees are not. And here are 3 things you can do about this. First, stop using perks and pay to motivate people. It does not work. Employees can definitely be unhappy when they're paid unfairly, but no one is happy because their salary is high or because there's a ping pong table in the office. Stop doing it. Second tip, instead you need to focus on results and relationships. That's what makes people happy at work, when they do great work together with great people. And third, you need to measure employee happiness, and unhappiness, so you know exactly what's working and what you can do better. That's what heart count is all about. It gives you weekly numbers for each team, for each person, for the whole organization, so you can see what's going well and see where you can improve and actually act on it. My whole point here is that the traditional view of productivity is not only wrong, it's actively harmful. It's hurting our employees and it's hurting productivity. But it remains the dominant view, and it still controls much of our thinking and many of our choices in our workplaces. That is why we need to shift our thinking and put our employees first, because only then can they be productive in a sustainable way over the long term. Stay happy.